right, awesome. It is 11 o'clock. I want to thank everyone for joining. Today, we have a pretty packed house here today for 2023. So exciting. So welcome and thank you for joining our Next Experience Academy. This is just our monthly Academy session where we discuss all things related to Next Experience. And as you can see, we have a lot more folks on this call for 2023. So I'm going to keep introductions brief because we have a jam-packed session today with some really exciting things. I did want to go ahead and just do some quick introductions here before we get started. We do have a special new addition to our team. I will let Gabby introduce herself today.
Hello, nice to meet everybody. My name is Maria Gabriela Ochoa Perez-Wechter. A lot of you might know me as MGOPW on the community. And this is my very first academy. It's an outbound product manager for ServiceNow. Nice to meet everybody again.
Great. And then joining us today as our presenters, so we have Scott Messick and Jackie Lewis from our inbound Now Design System team. I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Messick. I'm a product manager on the design system team. Good to meet everybody.
And I'm Jackie. I'm a product manager on the design system team with Scott.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm just going to do a few housekeeping things real quick, and then I'm going to hand it off to Scott and Jackie today. So our today's session is on Theme Builder and our theming engine. I do want to go ahead and just mention that these topics are informational. They're not a technical deep dive. We will be recording this session and it'll be posted on YouTube. And if you have any questions, please ask in the Q&A window. So our team is going to be fielding questions in the background as Scott and Jackie are presenting. And we will pause during the session too if we think that the question is relevant to the content. So please put your questions there instead of the chat. That way we can get to them. And then before we go any further, let me just go ahead and throw out the safe harbor notice before I forget. So we may have some forward-looking statements on the Academy today, just some products that are still maybe in discovery or still being developed. So please don't make any purchasing decisions based upon the content that we cover today. And with that, I will go ahead and hand off the sharing to Scott.
Perfect. So good morning, everybody. I'm going to be speaking about theming capabilities generally, specifically our theming engine, which is a way that essentially styling is delivered throughout the Next Experience. When we think about theming and all of that, I think it's critical to ground ourselves in sort of how we approach this. And how many companies approach this area, and that's with design systems. Design systems are essentially, boiled down to patterns and practices that can be applied typically to product development. And in ServiceNow, we have a design system. That's the Now Experience Design System, and that's exactly what our design system does. It's been a few years in the making. It's relatively mature. It does, exactly as I mentioned, support all of the patterns and practices that we apply throughout, our product development at a very, very low level. It contains the things listed, visual design language and assets, our principles, style guides, etc. And an important and emerging part of our design system are theming capabilities, specifically the theme engine, which I'm going to speak to, and then theme builder, which Jackie will speak to. So what is theming? It's really about being able to systematically customize our design system to reflect a product or brand. We know it's increasingly important for our customers to be able to realize their branding goals. And it's a little more than, I think, just styling. It's a little bit broader and maybe deeper than that. And through theming, we're looking at a holistic approach to make that styling as simple as possible, as powerful as possible. Theming typically involves changing, colors. That's an obvious. but it can also include, fonts and spacing and the shapes of elements, the forms of elements, things like that. At the end of the day, it allows customizations to achieve branding goals. And an important part of this for us is providing upgradability and improved experience. We want to make sure that any future upgrades are seamless and that the work done to implement theming is, something that's transferable, pretty simply as we move forward in our product development here. So just a very broad statement here, but to summarize all of this, the theming engine is a infrastructure that allows customers to control the visual style of their next experience applications in support of their branding needs. And that's the bottom line here. So the challenge that we took on here is, how do we style at scale? Kind of as I said, I think styling particular elements, styling even pages, we all know that can be done using CSS and has been for years. As we looked at theming, we thought, how can we elevate this, and how can we make it as systematic as possible? And so the approach we've taken uses style variables, and those style variables support styling of things, as mentioned, like color, shape, form, typography. We organize them into 3 different levels, and this is really, I think, the power of our design system here in a picture. At the very lowest level, we have generic variables. These are style variables that apply very broadly across all types of elements in a workspace. So the very lowest level. Second level, we have our categorical elements. This would allow targeting, style targeting at, say, a category level. Could be, say, buttons or text or so groups of elements, and that's the second level. The highest level of styling we have is component level styling. This would allow targeting of very specific components. When we apply styling at a component level, it would override anything applied at a categorical or generic level. If we applied styling at a categorical level, it would override generic level. We could actually ride with only generic level style definitions, not categorical or component, and things would actually look pretty darn good. As we want to refine our approach and get more specific about the styling we're applying, we'll use categorical hooks as the next step, and then component hooks as probably the final steps to really fine-tune the look and feel of things. So here's examples of these theming variables, theming hooks, we call them, style variables. Generic variables, as said, the lowest level. So they're, you can tell just by their name, they're very, very basic. In this case, we've got 3 color variables: neutral, primary, and secondary. And these would drive color pretty much across all elements of the application. An example of the second level categorical variables, these are going to target specific categories. In this case, I pulled out some text variables. So when I apply values to these variables, they're going to style different text elements in my applications, but it's pretty broad. They're very broad strokes and will pretty much touch all of the text, regardless of whether it's in a button or whether it's in a card or whatever. The final level there, component level, here I'm targeting very specific components. In this case, in the example I have, is a card. And here I can target, say, the card header, heading, primary color, or the card caption color. And these are a couple of different elements that are in our now card component. So I'm going to show you an example. Let's have some fun. We'll do a live demo. So this is asset workspace, and I'm just going to use this as a sort of base example. So we're going to go through an example of the theme engine, and what I'm going to do is start with, say, the very lowest level of style variables, and then we'll build up from there. And I'll show you exactly how these get applied and what happens when they're applied. So I've created a demo theme. I've just jumped into UX themes. I'm going to click on my theme. My theme consists at this point of one style property record, and this is affecting colors, and I'll click into that. So you can see I've pre-populated this, but this is those first generic set of hooks that I showed you. And so I've just got very, the simplest sort of implementation I can. These 3 color hooks really cover my entire workspace. And we can actually see the example. I mean, I showed the workspace that's having these 3 hooks applied. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a couple of others. And actually, before I do that, let me go back to the workspace. So what I'm going to really focus on is the card container here. And use this kind of, the card component here, and use that as my point of reference. So let me go back to my theme. What I'm going to do is add a couple of style property records. And these, I'm now targeting basically all of the text within the application. And I'm using some pretty kind of, I don't know, garish, but some very, very basic colors just to make sure that they stand out. And there's no question about what's being styled or not styled with those theming variables. So let me save this. And I'm going to go back to my workspace. Actually, we can already see that the styling has been applied. I've got some green text and some red text and some blue text. So these are all examples of the theme engine applying the styling variables. Refresh my asset page. And so now I can see that really all of the text that is on the page has been affected, I mean, generally speaking, has been affected by those categorical level variables that I've applied. So let's go one step further, I think, and let's see if we can't, just for sake of example, update the styling of our card components. So I'm going to actually go back to my theme, and I'm going to add 2 additional hooks, and I'm going to put comma here to make sure it goes through, right? So now what I've got, these 3 variables are targeting my text category, and these 2 variables that I've added now are targeting specifically the card header and the card caption. And I'm using just some very basic coloring here, some shades of gray. So let me save this. And I'll go back to my asset workspace, and I will refresh. Right. And so now what I've got is through the theming engine, I've been able to define those variables for styling for my card. I've defined the color for them, and we can see now I've gone from really having just the simplest case of using only generic variables, in which case my workspace looks doesn't have a lot of unique color applied to it. I then targeted the text variables and very broadly, categorical level styled pretty much all of the text on the page. And then finally, I just targeted the cards here and the card header and the card caption specifically. There's one other thing I want to mention, and that is there's 2 properties here. I'm sorry, there's 2 sections of properties here in my my style file. The first one here, the base section, our theming engine actually generates style variables under the covers based on the colors or based on the variable values I specify here. And that's partly why if I have nothing else specified here and I only use these, our theming engine actually produces those variables under the covers and populates them with colors, just talking about color here, colors that are based on these colors I've defined here. When I add these variables, I'm actually overriding things that get generated or are derived under the covers by the theming engine from these variables. So the one thing I want to say is there's maybe, while this is valid and this is awesome, there's potentially a little bit of danger when I hard code color values in here. And the reason for that is that, I may additionally want to have, let's say, a dark theme variant. So in this case, I'm working with a theme that is relatively light. What if I wanted to have the inverse of that, or for whatever reason, and have dark theme? And this is actually supported in our Polaris theme, which is out of the box. When I specify these hard-coded colors here, these RGB values, the theming engine will always use those. So in this case, my heading primary color will always be this gray color. My caption color always be this gray color. What I can actually do instead is reference a variable that has already been defined. And by doing so, I'm ensuring that the derived colors will be applied, and that regardless of sort of whether the theme is relatively light or relatively dark, the theme engine is going to serve up appropriate color shades, and my theme will be safe to use, again, whether it's sort of light or dark. So let me just give you an example. Let me show you real quick. I could just grab one of these variables and use this here. And actually, I know that a number of variables are derived from my neutral. So I could make this say neutral 9. That's going to be a relatively dark color. And similarly, I can make this neutral 6, right? And so what I'm doing here, instead of hard coding colors here, I'm going to reference variables that are generated from this section. And this will mean that I'm kind of safe if I do create theme variants, that I know my colors will be generated safely and work within that theme. And let me just show you, just for the last step here, to go back with that applied. Yeah, it's probably not the right shades, but you can see the shade has just changed slightly. So cool. So that is the end of the demo.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. We did have some questions I think are relative to this before we move on that were asked in the Q&A. The first one is, do we have a document somewhere of all the hooks available that customers can access, or do we have plans for that?
We definitely have plans for it. We have had a website that was up that was referenced a lot of different times, and it listed the variables, let you kind of interrogate them using some filtering capabilities. Very useful. And for a couple of different reasons, we had to take it offline. But that will be replaced very, very shortly with a similar capability with all of the information about all of the variables. I will say at the component level, I think there's about 1,250 unique variables. So there's, it's a great question, and yeah, we need to have that listing available. It's definitely planned.
Awesome. And then we did have another question. It seems like the primary and secondary colors are really easy to spot when you are setting them. But what kind of things are the neutral color variables used for?
Yeah, they're sort of the primary colors that are used, and really their main purpose is as a source for other colors that are produced by the theming engine and applied to the workspace. So while it may not be obvious, like in the example I have, and I am still sharing my screen, it may not be super obvious to see, this gray color and this blue color and this sort of bronzy color in the workspace. But what's happening under the covers is the theming engine is deriving really CSS variables and CSS hooks under the covers that are used throughout the workspace. So that's really their primary purpose, is kind of as seeding values for styling information that's delivered in the style sheet to the page.
Okay. And then one follow-up, and I don't want to go too deep so we have enough time, but we did have a question on maybe how those are calculated. Is there some kind of high-level answer? Because I know that could probably get pretty technical on how the derived colors are calculated.
Yeah, this is an awesome question. We have a proprietary algorithm that we use to do that. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. I started to mention, or I did mention, that we for the Polaris theme, we support both a light and dark theme, and we know that, dark support for a dark theme is an important thing. But if we look beyond that, we want customers to have the ability to create any number of what we call variant styles. They may be relatively dark, they may be gray, they may be holiday themed, whatever, delightful sort of theme or seasonal theme that may be useful or you may want to have. This algorithm that produces those derived hooks is capable of recognizing, again, whether the theme is relatively light or dark and producing colors in line with that. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Scott. I know we do have some more questions and we'll kind of hold those till the end. I did want to get to the ones that were kind of relevant to what Scott was speaking to with Theme Engine. Before I pass it off to Jackie, I do just want to launch a quick poll. It's one question, and I'll keep it up for just a moment. And basically the poll is, have you created a next experience theme? And you have answers of yes or no. And I'll just leave that up for just a second. And I think a lot of the Q&A that we have regarding a theme generator or some kind of helpful site will be answered in just a moment. Awesome. So I'll go ahead and close down the poll. We got a lot of great participation. So it seems like, Scott and Jackie, just so you guys are aware, we have 35% of the participants who are on here today. They've created an Next Experience theme, but the majority haven't yet. So, about 66, the numbers keep changing. So this is going to be like new concepts and a new way of doing it. So this is a great session to attend if you have not created a theme yet, but if you have to, you're going to get a lot from this too. So Jackie, with that, I will hand it off to you.
All right. Well, I'm excited to take you guys through the content for Theme Builder. And thank you, Scott, for laying the foundation of what all of this is put on top of. This is really the framework for an app like this to be created. It's the design system's first application, and we're excited to show off the power of theming in an easy-to-use tool for low to no code users. So the problem that we set out to solve is that we've built an amazing theming infrastructure that we had just seen, but we didn't yet have the support tooling to enable users, particularly admins, to realize their brands and their experience in an easy way via theming. We had reached out and talked to real customers, and they gave us a couple quotes about their current theming experience. So some of you that said that you have created Next Experience so far, you might relate to some of these. So one of our participants said that they couldn't necessarily hand off theming to somebody else. They really needed someone with a technical knowledge to help them putting together the pieces of theming to create a visual consistency across the platform was a pain in the rear end for someone. Another team was a little worried and apprehensive that their dev teams may break those customizations, or that customizations related to themes may have to be rewritten. They might break on upgrade, and they're even considering that if theming is the option worth the technical debt to maintain it. And then the last participant, the last quote I'll just say is that this customer needed an easier way to enable consistent branding across their applications. And as we saw with Scott's demo, this is their current reality. So I think a lot of these users had seen this before and tried writing their themes, but they found out that theming process requires extensive ServiceNow knowledge. You need to know how to get here and manipulate the record the way that you want. You need to know how to develop and code JSON and how all of this hangs together. And you need extensive color theory knowledge if you want to make the colors match and put them where they're intended in your brand. This customization process also currently requires external tools. It's really time consuming. It's difficult and again, painful to maintain. And then finding these relationships and among all of our hooks that we provide is pretty difficult. And there was a common phrase called hunting and pecking, where users would just try out a lot of different things, preview them, and that also contributed to increased time to create a theme. So with that, NDS set out and built our first tool, which is Theme Builder. This will allow you to manage, edit, and implement themes in an easy, efficient, and upgrade-safe way so you can reflect your company's brand in your workspace. So this really gives admins the power and control to make and apply these themes really quickly and see that value of your brand in your workspace to your end users so much faster. So what could take potentially currently weeks or months for people to onboard and be able to get to the level that Scott and I are at right now to create really robust themes now takes a matter of minutes. And this is really important because theming is essential for most customers. Brands in general, as you guys know, creates a sense of belonging, alignment to company values, supports that visual consistency and wayfinding in your experience, and even increases productivity. Those same customers that wanted to theme but couldn't told us how important it was for their brands to be realized. They were talking about how their employees really matter and they wanted to provide that visual experience for their end users. Creating a modern and best experience via this beautiful UI aligns to their company values and motivates people to feel like they're using the latest and greatest technology. That consistent visual experience helps people follow the application and know where they are. And actually, a lot of people use themes and managing multiple themes as a visual aid between different workspaces. So sub prod and prod, for example, they know they're making their changes in the right environments via theming. And admins will have the ability to create their own themes, but the power for end users to select from these themes and really personalize and customize their own workspaces gives them the sense of ownership and seeing their sense of self in their own workspace. So it's a combination of very essential brand management, but also a delightful factor of being able to customize where you're working every day. So with that, I'm really excited. I'm going to show you a demo of Theme Builder. Just to note as well, this will be available in the store in early February. So you guys can get your hands on it and play with it as well.
And can we confirm what version Theme Builder will be compatible with?
It'll be starting in Utah. You can play with the Theme Builder in Utah and beyond. So I have Theme Builder favorited, and since it does come into the store, I have it installed as a plugin. Just for reference, though, it's under Next Experience Framework, and it'll populate under Theme Management. So I'll go ahead and open the application, and we'll be ported to our beautiful home page. So this is where you can get to know the app a little bit more. We wanted to start building trust with you guys and get you to know what theming is and what you can do with this application. So there's a little bit of wayfinding, introduction to some of the features that we have, and some useful links at the bottom as well if you want to learn about theming across the platform. So to create a theme, I have a little cheat sheet here of a fictitious brand. And we'll get started to create a theme via this really easy to use wizard. So I have my logo assets ready and my colors ready, and I'm ready to go. So we'll call this one Website Planet, and it'll be a default theme for my company. Oops. And what this is doing in the background is auto-generating a theme record that Scott had shown in the background. So even if you log out or if your computer stalls, that theme record will always be available to you. So it's writing it as you create it. So I'll select my primary color, and via this abstraction, you can see where those colors might start applying. And in this workspace, when we get to the edit phase, we can change those as well. So this fictitious brand does have a secondary color. This is optional. So if your brand is just blue, you have the option to skip this. And if you notice, we came in here and it automatically generated that primary color as your secondary too. But we'll give this one a nice little punchy pop of darker lilac for their theme. Neutral is also something that you can configure for this demo. I won't mess with this too much, but it is set automatically so that most brands will be compatible with this neutral color that works really well in our workspaces out of the box. Next, we have this concept of additional colors. Internally, we call this our crayon box for reference in our edit workflows as well. So if you have, for example, any additional colors or seasonal colors that you use for brands or pops of color throughout, you can apply that. So as you remember, I added sort of a lilac phase colors for the primary. For this brand, their pop of color will be a nice pink. And then I'll upload my custom logo. So this one, there are image requirements that shouldn't have changed throughout time. So what you were using before can also be used in Theme Builder. And as you saw, if you don't have a logo, it'll fall back to the ServiceNow logo here as well. So that is also optional. We do have some fonts available out of the box from ServiceNow. So you are able to select from these preset ones. There will be more to come there as well. And you can select your corner radius. So if you wanted to preview that in the abstraction a little closer, we have a zoom up option so that you can see the components changing their shape and select what works for your brand. And then you get a nice little receipt. Again, this is creating the theme record in the background. So this is mostly just for your reference. If you wanted to go back in this workflow and change anything on the fly, you can do that. Or you can create your theme and hop into the edit experience. So this is where you can kind of preview your theme before you apply it, which had taken a long time and a little bit of creative thinking to preview your theme before you apply it in the past. So this just gives you an easier way to do just that and make sure that all of your changes are actually applied, everything looks great, and give you the ability to edit if you see fit. So in the experience preview, these are just abstractions. They don't actually quite do anything, but we had added the ability to preview your themes on a dummy instance. So depending on your experience, you can go into your workspaces and actually see a sample theme applied, which is great. So for this workspace, I want to show you how you can use your additional brand colors for a little bit more of a pop of color. So we do have these in-depth kind of editing panels. As you saw, this was the overview and something that was pulled from the wizard workflow. But if you wanted to deep dive into color, we've provided you that option here as well. So just to know, let's try changing our surface brand color to that additional color. In our color picker, we have these pre-generated, we're using the algorithm here, colors just based on your one selection of color. So if you just had your primary and secondary, we derive those for you using the algorithm. So you don't have to do all that math. And it solves the need for color theory here. You don't need to know too much about what these are doing. So I can also plug and play if I don't know out of the box what surface brand does. I can select any color from that color picker and see what it'll apply to. As you saw, the backgrounds change in the surface colors here. So I didn't actually need to know what surface brand relates to any of the hooks, but I'm able to see what it might apply to via these abstractions. And let's say this customer wanted to put some more contrast in their buttons as well. They can go ahead and do that in these as well. So this one is a fun one to play with as well. I'll just go ahead and change our primary system, which relates to inputs and selectable items, to our secondary color as well. So this gives them an ability to get that pop of color to a select number of global styling hooks. So that, again, with just one decision of where you want to make these changes, applies globally throughout any of your experience that you have access to. So as a customer, this is looking good to me. I have that punchiness of the pink with the buttons and the background Surface brand. I'm going to go ahead and apply this to my workspace. So right now we have this manage page. It is collecting all of the themes that you have created, and it comes with your default themes that you have out of the box. So this might be familiar for those that are in San Diego. We have our default theme that we give to you. And then here's the one that I had just created. This is also filterable via a list option as well. And I can just go ahead and apply this with a click of the button. So this was my website planet theme. I'm going to go ahead and apply. It's letting me know it'll replace my default theme, which I am okay with. And voila, it is applied. So if I go back to my instance and give it a quick little refresh because it's just been sitting here. You'll see that my logo is here. All of my primary colors are here. My Surface brand is looking great. And I'm able to just go on with my day. So again, what takes potentially months to write that theme record to get it to this level of visual consistency, I'm done with in less than 5 minutes. That's the end of my demo.
Awesome. There's been lots of excitement in the chat. I think that was
cool.
Really great. I know we do have some questions, but as you guys can see, if you've been working on this in San Diego and Tokyo, you would have had to kind of use dev tools or go and find all these things. And Jackie was just able to do that for us so quickly. So definitely worth the wait, in my opinion. But we do have some really great questions here, and I'll kind of throw them out you guys' way. So the first one was if we can install this to our PDIs, and it should be available for your PDI. It is a platform product. It is not licensed. You will have to wait for the store release, which is in early February, to see it. But once you go to the store, you should be able to get it for your PDI. So I did want to broadcast that and let everyone know. Another good question for you, Jackie, is if they create, let's say that they have this theme builder in Utah or they have it in a PDI, can they create a theme here and export it out to Tokyo?
Oh, I see. I don't see why not. It is creating a theme record that is, just as Scott had said, been working since San Diego. So I wouldn't see the reason why you could create a theme here using the application and then using it in an instance before Utah.
Awesome. And I think we're going to have some documentation on the community about that too, because I know that a lot of customers will still be on Tokyo, but you do have the ability to get this on your PDI. So this would be a really great way to start learning the tool. But if you want to start theming or need to start theming and you're on a Tokyo or San Diego instance, then you can export those records out. So we'll have more documentation on the community on how to do that once Theme Builder has been released.
I would add there's probably some level of risk there. It's possible that things have changed from Tokyo to Utah, even if we don't, if it's not obvious to us. So if you're going to do that, test heavily in your subprods before you do anything like that in prod.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad. The next one. So are we able to add our own custom fonts into Theme Builder?
Yeah, Scott, do you want to help me with this one?
Yes, I mean, in general, yes, our theming engine supports font specification of a custom font. There are some limitations, and I can only kind of speak generally. You know, we've implemented a couple of fonts ourselves, the design system, and you know, not every single font scales in the way that maybe we expect it to scale. In our case, we used a couple of open source fonts, and it took us a little bit of time actually working with the font developer to make sure that they were really up to snuff and really, you know, weren't any unexpected or unintended side effects. So I just use sort of a caveat. Yes, it's definitely possible. Want to make sure, you know, kind of as Brad said, do any testing on your subprod. Also, make sure you have license to use that font. That's another thing. You can't just use an Adobe font and throw it on there. You may not have license to use it in that manner. So just make sure you're using an open source font or a font that you have the broad license to use. Anything you'd add, Jackie?
In Theme Builder, I would just say we, again, just expose the ones that we know will work on our experience out of the box. But yeah, you can, in the theme record, as Scott was saying, add and reference different fonts, just do some testing beforehand.
Yeah.
And I'll add on, I do believe we have some product documentation out there on how to do that already. Awesome. So we have some more questions here. We're good on time. Will you be able to clone a theme as a starting point in Theme Builder?
That is a great question. I'd love to know a little bit more about the question. If anybody could elaborate, are we able to do that, Ashley, in these sessions?
Let's see. I think I put it in the chat to see if we can elaborate on that a little bit more. We can come back around to that one.
Okay. I would say if we aren't able to clone them in the way that you want, Theme Builder is very quick. So if you had, again, those referencing colors, or you know what you're shooting for, you can create your own new theme using the latest and greatest technology in the newest theme record and our color algorithm in just a couple of minutes as well. So if you're not able to migrate your old themes over, you can create new ones in Theme Builder. That'll probably extend a little bit further than the ones from Legacy.
It looks like Martin continued his question in another Q&A question. They said, for example, start from system dark mode and modify from there.
I see. Just one note before I answer that one as well. In Theme Builder, we don't yet have the support for either theme variants or dark theme auto generation. That's a whole nother algorithm that we have to make. So just to know, if you are trying to extend a dark theme, there'll be a lot of caveats with that. And we can help, but it's not yet supported in the Theme Builder application.
Okay. Let's see. We have actually a lot of questions coming. We'll try to get to what we can, and if we can't, we'll answer them offline. Let's see. So choosing themes for individual workspaces. This has been a really good question, and it's kind of been around since San Diego and Tokyo. For theming. Can we kind of clarify? I know we have some documentation out there, but I want to kind of clarify on this academy and maybe some forward-looking statements. So right now, if you do apply a theme to Next Experience and you are using configurable workspaces, not the legacy agent workspace, they're going to inherit that theme because they are wrapped underneath the Next Experience kind of shell. So any kind of theme that's applied to it is going to cascade down to the workspaces. But I do want to kind of toss that over to the NDS team to see if we have any kind of forward-looking information on being able to theme different workspaces.
Yeah, I would say it's not directly supported. However, it is indirectly supported and definitely doable. The way we support it indirectly is using an applicability model or the applicability model. This is not just something for theming. Applicability is available for other purposes across the platform. With applicability, you can essentially relate the theme property records to roles, really what it boils down to. And then users in those roles have access to that theme. So if let's say that you had two workspaces, asset and IT, for example, you could have users in your IT role related to one of the theme property records, users in your asset role related to a different theme property record. And when those users log in, the theme will be provided based on the applicability of their role. So it's not possible to directly relate it to a workspace, but indirectly through roles, it can be applied. The other way it could be done, if you're using subdomains, that kind of thing, is there's a similar approach to relating theme property records to domains. And it's a little more involved, but that could also be done.
Okay. And I think that answers kind of the questions that we've been getting regarding making certain themes or variants accessible via user criteria. So those style records within a theme, that's where Scott is mentioning the applicability. And that is following kind of a role model right now. If you've used UI Builder, you may be familiar with the concept of audiences and how they're built off roles. Currently, these style records use the same kind of concept. So like Scott mentioned, you can apply that style record to an ITSM user using Service Operations Workspace. You can have a different style record for an asset user using the asset workspace. There is some product documentation, but we do plan on diving deeper into some more kind of user-friendly scenarios in the community. So keep an eye out for that shortly. We'll have some more articles out. Cloning. So that's a good question. I know a lot of admins who have been setting up instances or working with ServiceNow for years. Like you mentioned, the best practice is to have each of your instances a different color, so you know you're not developing in prod versus subprod. Does Theme Builder preserve the themes per clone right now, or is that something that admins would need to set up to make sure that when they clone from production, their subprod doesn't get overwritten with production's theme?
Yeah, it's the latter. With our first release, we're really exposing the ability to theme your entire experience and your platform experience and everything that you have access to in the next experience. Our roadmapped item is to expose and kind of manage the instances. That is a pretty tangly box though. So we are currently gathering requirements for that. And if you have more info on how you use that, I am very interested in collecting your input.
Okay, awesome. And we're going to have a slide where we're going to gather feedback in just a little bit. We do have some community articles out there. You can set up some data preservers to do that on your own. So there is an article out there already based on the San Diego Tokyo theming that will update when Utah comes out. But I did want to kind of just throw that out there. You still will need to kind of preserve those themes when you're cloning or find out how to reset them. So thank you for that information, Jackie. Okay, I'm trying to get through all of these questions and make sure that we get all of the ones that we think everyone needs to know. So here's a good question, and it's relating to the concept of variants, like we've been talking about those different style records. We've had a lot of questions about this too. We have like a lot of questions about how do we get these different colors and themes to show in the user preferences panel. I did kind of want the NDS team to speak to that for version 1 of Theme Builder.
Yeah, so version 1, just to be transparent, again, creates our core styles and a theme without variants for your entire application. We don't yet support variants, but again, collecting feedback and requirements. So if you guys manage multiple themes or need that user preference panel to have multiple, please let me know how you use those and why, so that we can build it the way that you want. The second thing is that in, I think the variant style record, and Scott, maybe this steps into your territory, those are written a little bit differently and maybe even more efficiently, where you can take your core style sheets, reference the differences that you would want to see, and then apply those to your theme as well. So we can put out documentation on how to do those on the fly with the capabilities of Theme Builder. It's just not integrated into the tool quite yet.
And I'm sure we'll have more documentation and stuff on that too once it's released. We got you, Brad and I and Maria. We're thinking about how to kind of have more videos and stuff about this and more articles too. So we'll go deeper into that. Just a few more questions here. This one, we're kind of getting to the difference between the legacy theming and our new theming. But as far as like any kind of like custom experiences or maybe those portal experiences that folks are creating from App Engine Studio, will Theme Builder apply to that, or is it just for Next Experience and Workspaces right now?
The latter. So it's for Next Experience. We are, though, looking ahead into portal theming, and I think a roadmap item to share with you guys is that we want Theme Builder to be the central theming hub for any themes that you create. You would go to the application and manage them, see how they apply across your platform. So again, if you have that need, or if you want your portal and your workspaces to look differently or the same, this includes mobile as well. Please tell us how you're using this.
Awesome. And I'll throw that slide up shortly. A couple more. There was one on dark theme in Tokyo. I'll go ahead and answer this. We do have some product documentation and some articles out there. So there is a system property that you can set if you want dark theme to apply to the classic environment list and forms in Tokyo. I don't believe we enabled it by default because we want admins to really evaluate that and make sure that it works for their users. But the property is in there, so we can put it in the Q&A that's linked to the session on the community after. But that's how you do that. So if you're not seeing dark mode in classic environment forms and lists in Tokyo right away, that's because that property is not set. I won't take too much time on here, but stay tuned for more sessions coming up on Utah as dark theme and dark mode has gotten a lot of really exciting enhancements. So I won't take too much time on that here. And then the last one, Jackie, that I thought was pretty interesting and maybe a good enhancement is the ability to kind of order the different variants that show up in that user preferences panel. I've seen that on the community where folks want to be able to order those. So maybe some greens would show up before reds and things like that. I don't know if we have that ability now, but I did want to throw that out to you guys while we're on the call as a good feature request.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, tell me how you want it and we'll do our best to build it the way that you guys need.
Awesome. I think we've covered a lot of great questions. If we get more, we'll definitely post some async on the community article. We are going to take all these questions too and write them out on the community article for this event. So if you want to look at these questions afterwards and don't want to watch the entire recording, I'll have them there for you in a big comment. I do want to thank Jackie and Scott for joining us today and do a little bit more housekeeping before I let everyone go. So let me go ahead and just pull up my PowerPoint. So we mentioned sending us feedback. So if you guys have feedback on this session or theming in general, feel free to contact me or Brad. Our emails are right here, and we can funnel that feedback along to Scott and Jackie's team. For any kind of, enhancement requests or things like that. We just want your feedback on theming, as Jackie mentioned, so we can make this better and kind of see how you guys are using the tool and kind of account for those use cases. So I have our emails here at the top for that. If you had feedback on our Next Experience Academies or any of our community websites, please leave your feedback at the link at the bottom. We're trying to make our community articles better and the structure of finding content on the community better. And of course, we definitely value any kind of academy feedback so we can work on those and make them better as well. So we have some QR codes and a link here in our emails, and I'll share this out too. This deck will be shared on the post after this event. A little bit more housekeeping. You may have seen it, but we do have a new community site where we've organized everything into product hubs. So Next Experience does have its own product hub now, and that's where you'll find everything from like getting started articles to quick start guides. We kind of go into more advanced use cases. And of course, the forum is there as well. So any kind of questions or articles that you guys in the community are posting are going to be found there. And we do have kind of a micro site within that now, which is our Center of Excellence site, where Brad and I have tried to aggregate what we think you guys need to get started with, or what's like really important on your journey when you're using Next Experience Workspaces or UI Builder. So check that out. Those are two really great resources to look at first. We're really going to post there first before we post anywhere else. And of course, if you want to know more about academies, it's there too. We do have our Academy page that is located on the Product Hub and the COE. So you can view upcoming Academy sessions, look at recordings from prior Academy sessions. So that's where this one will be. And of course, the Q&A we'll have there as well. So just, be sure to bookmark that or know where to find it. We have a short link there for you as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our sister or related academy sessions. So the platform team has lots of different academies out there. We've had the Platform Academy that's been running for a couple of years now that has a lot of different topics relating to the platform. We have an Analytics Academy, our Mobile Academy, Virtual Agent Academy, and AI Academy. So if anything really ServiceNow relating to the platform, you're going to be able to find out in one of our academies. So I have some short links there for you. But if you go to our product hub and go to Now Platform, we'll have a really quick link to those as well. Awesome. So this has been a really great session. I do, again, want to thank the Now Design System team for joining us today and giving us a really great background on Theme Builder and Theme Engine and answering a lot of questions that I know that everyone's had for a while. So I do appreciate it, and keep an eye out for future sessions and for this session to be on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.